Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, as you can tell from the thumbnail and from the title, we're going to talk about Humza Yousaf's black hole. And if you're sniggering, it's because you've got a filthy mind. Well done. But here we're going to talk, of course, about his financial black hole. 17 years of financial mismanagement by a party that's failed in every area of policy, and yet having accrued and accumulated this massive debt, this massive problem, he seems to think that he is perfectly suited and qualified to give a series of lectures on economic policy. This is seriously like Dr. Mengele talking about medical ethics. It's just not going to work, is it? I'm sure a lot of people will turn up to watch him, but not because they're going to be listening to the sagacity of the wise one, just simply to laugh at him and mock him and ridicule him, which is exactly what we do on this channel. So do please hit the subscribe button to watch and continue as we all mock and ridicule this marvellous party of success and wonderful decision making or something. Anyway, we'll take a look at this, see what he's doing, see what he's saying, and see why he thinks he's fit to discuss economic policy when he's so far down a financial black hole. Here goes. So, Humza Yousaf is told he is in no position to lecture economics with Scotland in a £1.5 billion black hole. The First Minister is set to deliver the first of a series of economic speeches, but he's been told that after years of SNP mismanagement, he can't lecture anyone on finance. I reckon he can't even balance his own chequebook. There he is. That's a wonderful picture. We've seen that picture before. It's when he thought it was a fart, isn't it? And he's got to go, excuse me, can I leave the room, miss? You know. Anyway, Humza Yousaf has been told by political rivals that he has no right to lecture anyone about economics, with Scotland sitting on a £1.5 billion financial black hole. And I reckon it's more. They was for a long time saying it was $1 billion, and I kept saying no, it's way more than $1 billion. It's got to be way more than $1 billion. When you look at the numbers, there's no way it's $1 billion. And then they come out and say, well, actually it's 1.5 billion. Well, you know they're only saying 1.5 billion because they don't want to say 2 billion, because it's at least 2 billion when you look at the numbers. Anyway, the First Minister is set to speak in a series of economic policy speeches tomorrow, in which he is expected to say Scotland, well, by that they mean today, but in which he is expected to say Scotland has extraordinary resources and key economic strengths, which it does. Now, let's not beat around the bush. It does have extraordinary resources and economic strengths. Unfortunately, the SNP, aligned with the Marxist extremist Greens, want to utterly destroy those resources. Oil, gas, the whole of the petrochemical industry, massive, and they want to close it. You've got this vast hinterland of beautiful scenery where you could pull in thousands of tourists, bring in all those tourist dollars, and instead they want to cut it all up, dig it all up and put wind farms everywhere, which will utterly destroy it. They're doing their damnedest to break the whole of the hotel and short-term stay industry, with all this licensing thing, because they're like the mafia. They want to have a little cut of your pie. It's a protection racket. All these things. They're utterly destroying every aspect of Scotland, and all the things they can do. They want to ban the advertising of alcohol. Scotland's whisky industry is worth billions. Anything that Scotland's got that is a valuable resource is being destroyed by the SNP and their little Marxist bum chums in the Greens. Anyway, Yousaf will speak at Glasgow University, drawing comparisons between the SNP, Labour and the Tories, including on the EU and migration, ahead of a general election expected this year, as well as releasing plans for individual policy in an independent Scotland. Now, we know his migration plans mean bringing in lots of people that are just like him, because Scotland, as far as he's concerned, is way too white. His speech comes after a similar event held by Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer last week, while Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak told journalists he favoured the second half of the year for a new poll. But the Scottish Tories finance spokeswoman Liz Smith said the Scottish Government is in no position to lecture about finance. It really isn't, is it? Look how bad they've done the books. £1.5 billion, I reckon over £2 billion in the hole. And yet he sits there and wants to talk to people. Look at what I've done. Oh, dear God. They are. They are looking at what you've done. And they're laughing at it. And for you to stand there and tell people what a genius you are is utterly delusional. Or at least hubris. You have destroyed everything. And they want to give a series of lectures telling people how marvellous you are. People are looking at you and laughing and ridiculing you. And they're not even doing it behind your back. They're doing it to your face. Anyway, Elizabeth said, it beggars belief that the First Minister will lecture people on economics after she claimed his government created a £1.5 billion black hole in Scotland's finances. The SNP has presided over stagnant growth and utterly failed to engage with businesses or promote economic prosperity, she said. And we see this every single area of business in Scotland, every single sector, agriculture, tourism, engineering, petrochemical, you name it. They've done their best to break it, destroy it, overtax it, do what they can to make sure that it breaks, to make sure that it doesn't work, to impoverish the whole of society, to break Scotland down so far that it is unrecoverable by whoever comes next, in order so that they can then say they are the only way, the only saviours, the only messiahs that can look forward to the brave new world. It is classic fascism. It's what the National Socialists did in Germany in the 30s, and it's what they are trying to do now in the 2020s. She said it's difficult to know which is more alarming, the First Minister's economic illiteracy or his arrogant unawareness of it. Yeah, I mean, he's not just economically illiterate, he's barely literate, because he certainly can't read the writing on the wall, can he? Miss Smith's comments were echoed by Daniel Johnson, Scottish Labour's economic spokesman, who said the country's potential has been held back by the SNP. He said families don't need fantasy economics from Humza Yousaf in the middle of a cost of living crisis. They need his government to get a grip on its waste and incompetence. The only trouble is, you can't get rid of the incompetence of the SNP, or there literally wouldn't be an SNP. Every single one of them, in every single role, at everything they do, and at every stage they do it, is a shining example of incompetence, arrogance, and stupidity. And that is not a good mix for a government. While Labour talks about how we can change our economy to make work and pay and to put money back in your pocket, the SNP and the Tories seem to be having a competition to see who can sound more out of touch. Scots are sick of paying the price of SNP failure. We need a government focused on growing the economy, creating quality jobs and protecting public services. Well, public services are dying. We've already had councils handing out thousands of notices of redundancy up and down the whole country because they know they can't afford to pay people come the 1st of April because of the budget and the cuts, the massive, massive cuts. I'm expecting one or two councils to breach the Verity House agreement. I'm expecting one or two, especially non-SNP councils, to actually just put the council tax up anyway, regardless. And if that happens, Humza Yousaf is then a broken man. He stands at conference saying he's freezing it, and it only takes councils that aren't SNP councils to just put it up regardless of what he says. And then he's finished. Because he's just showing that he doesn't have authority, which he doesn't have anyway. He has no right over councils to tell them whether to freeze their council tax or not. Now, he can say he'll do it if he fully funds it. And then, of course, the budget comes and he's not even close to funding it, never mind fully funding it. So why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they just go, thanks very much, thanks for playing, but we're putting the council tax up anyway, and leave it at that? Where does he go? What's he going to do? Take them to court? Don't think so. Anyway, the under fire First Minister is also expected to launch an attack on the two main Westminster parties, kicking off a year likely to be dominated by electioneering and with a poll expected after June. Well, I'm going to suggest October. That's I've maintained it's going to be an October poll. Both Labour and the Conservatives agree the UK should be out of the EU and that the huge European single market, and they both want to cut vital inward migration, he's expected to say. Yes, vital inward migration. By that he means more people just like him. What he doesn't mean is white Europeans like the Ukrainians, because you've seen how he's massively cut the funding for Ukrainians. Doesn't want that kind of immigration. That, of course, is not the immigration he wants. He says those are just two examples which demonstrate that for the two main UK parties, Westminster's political interests will always override Scottish economic interests. Well, I think anyone who sits there and destroys the Scottish economy deliberately is not looking out for Scottish economic interests, Humza. What you want to do to the oil industry is despicable. We'll put thousands upon thousands of very highly paid, highly skilled jobs on the line and replace it with what? Misery, poverty and the dole. The SNP Scottish Government, he says, will ensure that Scotland, its economy and its people are not ignored by Westminster. No, they're not ignored by Westminster, but they are ignored by Edinburgh. He says the speeches, which are expected to cover areas including workers' rights, inward investment, the business landscape and ownership, will supplement the more policy-heavy papers in the Building a New Scotland series, and nobody cares, because nobody ultimately cares what he says. He's not a leader. He is a chair-warmer for when Kate gets her ass in and sits in it for the next 2 years until the next Holyrood elections, and then it'll probably be Labour, or at least probably a Labour-Tory coalition. It's the only way, that's going to happen, but it certainly won't be the SNP, and he won't be anywhere near it. He'll be gone by then. Hell, he may well be gone by Easter. Fingers crossed. Come on, Kate. Anyway, I shall stop there, come up, round off, and we'll finish the video. For him to give any kind of lecture on economics is purely delusional arrogance. One only has to point to the record, to the facts, to the truth. And as I've always maintained, it is the truth that will destroy the SNP. Facts is something that they really, really dislike, because the facts and the truth are anathema to them. They know that they are destroyed by them. And that is why they live in their world of lies, of deceit and of fakery. Because they daren't tell the truth. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel no end. We're political and they keep pushing us down in the algorithm simply because we are political. And do check you're still subscribed if you are a regular subscriber, because again, YouTube bumps people off occasionally, and I think it's purely, again, because we are political. Anyway, till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.